what's shocking right now in the United States, in Britain, in the Anglo-Saxon countries, actually, which are always seen globally as beacons of free expression and freedom to do whatever you want, is the elites are coming out from behind the curtain to shut
Oy
us
vey.
all down. They're coming out since Charlottesville. I'm not just talking about in America, since it was really the catalysts were Trump and Brexit. Ever since that happened, it's not so much that these two events actually changed anything because they didn't. Trump's presidency has been pretty milquetoast, and Brexit is probably never going to happen. But what scared the oligarchs and what scared the neoliberal order is the fact that they had every newspaper, every media platform, every journalist, every celebrity, all of them saying for people not to vote for something, and people voted for it anyway. So
Absolutely.
when the means of information and control over information are no longer enough to control a population, you're only, well, you're very close to having something more happen as people start to realize that their government sees them, the people themselves, as its enemy. You know?
Absolutely. Real quick, so Samaria had to go. She says, thanks for letting me on. It's fun to talk to y'all. We hope to see you around later. Also, just quick shout out to Mr. Ian Miles Chong and Mr. Fahrenheit. Oh, wait, no, Mr. Fahrenheit's still here. But everyone who was on the earlier stream, especially Mr. Ian Miles Chong for showing up. And thank you again, Samaria. It was really fun. But joining us now, we've got Psyched Hillick? How do I say that? Oh, and of course, Mr. McNabb. Thank you, Mr. McNabb. But how do you say your name, Psyched?
Is this working?
Yes. Hi, hello there, sir.
It's just, I don't know, Hillick, whatever.
Yeah, I got that. Don't worry.
Yeah, it don't matter. My only point was, I don't know, it just seems like I don't are you German? Like this Michael or Stryker or whatever, are you ethnically German or?
Why? What's your point? Well, I mean, are you going to talk about politics or try and characterize me personally? I mean, that's the problem here. What's your political critique?
I don't understand kind of the obsession with like idolizing Germany and like the Nazis as if like this is something we need to emulate.
Who's obsessed?
I'm not saying you're. I don't want to say you're obsessed, but I just want to say, like, I don't know if it's necessarily helpful.
Are you a racialist, or what? Yes. Are you? Do you consider yourself a white nationalist?
I guess. I mean,
what's your political ideology?
I don't know. I'd say I'm kind of like a LOLBERT in a way.
Okay, but, so you're a libertarian.
But I am definitely ethnically conscious as far as like
so
whites.
What was the first nation that mobilized against a similar system as now? The first party, the first revolutionary organization that was able to overthrow Jewish power. Who were the first Aryans in history to do that?
Well, they didn't really. I mean, they lost.
Well, no, they actually they took power.
They lost, though.
Well, yeah, they lost because the entire world came to attack them.
And they also killed millions of Europeans in
a war that the British started. Because I got the sense from the Spur chat that you're a real Anglophile and you.
No. The colonial shit just irritates me. It's just like kind of like basically like America and shit. Like, should that not exist, or Australia, or should Europeans just stay in Europe?
America is very different than the British Empire was.
But that's colonialism.
Well, in a sense, it was because America was basically populated by Indians, and Europeans migrated here, took it, and changed it. But the point is that that's a very different type of colonialism than going to like India and then imposing your culture on them, on the people there, making them speak English, making them take English names. That's just retarded, and it has the effect of making those people want to live in your country. And that's a problem we're having in Europe now. And that is entirely blowback from colonialism. So do you see why that's a problem?
I don't know if that's really, I don't know if I'd say that's a product of colonialism. I mean, people moving here, it's more or less a problem of like excessive altruism, I'd say, on white people's part, where they're obsessed with, I don't know, wanting to be liked.
Well, that's the American Renaissance point of view, and that's wrong, because white people overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump to close the border, and that's clearly not happening. So it's not altruism that's the problem. In truth, it's not even immigration isn't popular anywhere in the world. Even blacks in South Africa are sick of black immigration. So it's not something the population agrees with. So what do you think it is?
Well, it's just obvious. What do you mean? What do I think? What is exactly?
Well, as a libertarian, I'm not too sure. I can't gauge where you're coming from here, because, like, I mean, are you saying it's white people and not the Jews? I mean, what are you saying? Like,
As far as people coming here?
well, the immigration problem.
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously it's partially Jewish. I mean, because they have large amounts of influence. I'm not denying that. What I'm saying is, I don't think colonialism is in itself. What you're saying is that this is bringing in non-whites. I don't see that connection there.
So you're anti. Why? So why are you anti-Hitler? Why are you anti-Nazi?
That's just kind of banter. I'm not really like super anti-national socialist. My whole point is, it's like this whole thing where it's like, oh, this capitalism is this terrible force. It's done all this evil in the world, and I just don't see that at all.
Well,
personally.
do
I mean,
you consider the British Empire and the United States to be capitalist, at least in the 1930s and 40s?
I guess. I mean,
Okay, who won the war?
So,
Who won the war? Second World War.
well, the colonists.
Okay, they won the war.
Colonizers.
And how does the world look now? Do you like living in this world? Do you like how things are going?
I don't like how things are going, but do I like the way the world? Like, if I could, I don't know, if I could keep the current system but just make it white, then I probably would.
Okay, so I mean, the current system was white in the 1940s and the 50s, and it's not anymore. Well, America.
And here's another thing I want to say
American
about
Britain won the war. American Britain were the victors. They had, along with the Soviet Union, they owned planet Earth. And what happened? What does the world look like now? Well, do you really think that the Aryan race would be on the brink of extermination, of vanishing from the face of the earth if the Germans had won? Do you really think that?
No, I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is, I don't think this obsession with socialism is really necessary for this kind of like pro-white angle that you're trying to. I feel like it's blaming capitalism for. It's completely unnecessary. Like,
if the liberal capitalist ideology won in World War II, and these two liberal capitalist countries made the world this multicultural, cultural, Marxist, disgusting shithole, why would anyone want to rewind that tape and start it all over again? Why would you want to do that? There's clearly, would you at least agree that there's an ideological problem in America and Britain?
Yeah, in a sense. I mean, like, in what way? Like, I guess is in the way that people are expected to, like, especially for whites, like the double standard where you're expected to, forgo what's best for you or your nation for other people. You know what I mean? Other nations, other races, and stuff like that.
All I'm saying is that I think the Germans should have won World War II, and I think that we wouldn't even be having this conversation or these worries if they had won. And we are having these conversations and worries because they lost. I mean, is that really such a controversial point to make?
No, but do you understand all I'm trying to say here is that I don't necessarily think that capitalism, maybe you could say liberalism, but not necessarily capitalism, has led us to this.
Are they that distinct from each other? Liberalism as in classical liberalism.
Well, I mean, they were pretty. I mean, if you really look back into the history of America, I mean, it wasn't this way until relatively recently. I mean, if you really think about it, within the last, 50 years, after World War II, to where we kind of drifted away from traditionalism.
Well, what about the 1920s? You ever heard of the Roaring '20s?
Yeah, what about them?
Well, that was an age of mostly deregulation. I mean, yeah, they did have the Federal Reserve, but it was mostly deregulated free market liberalism. America was 90% white. And there was still degeneracy everywhere in the beginnings of the kind of cancer that really bloomed after the Germans were defeated. And that had nothing to do with any antibodies the system itself had, but more so because of evolutions and how media was consumed in terms of the centralization of media and whatnot. And this wasn't done with government power mostly. I mean, some people would argue that the radio stuff with the FCC was that, but in truth, the reality is that a small group of private individuals pursuing private profit and also private interests got together. They bought off all the newspapers and they control the narrative. How does a capitalist society prevent that? Every single capitalist country in world history has descended into a plutocracy and oligarchy like the ones we see in America today. If you don't have a sort of a government oversight of the economy, billionaires will run the economy for you. And how patriotic and how community-oriented do billionaires tend to be? They tend to be on the forefront of cosmopolitanism and globalism. And this isn't even new. This was even true back when the billionaires were Gentiles. Rockefeller, Carnegie, these guys were also globalists, not as aggressive as Jews, but they were globalists too, because capitalists believe that if you break down borders, break down cultural traditions, that you can make more money. So if profit is the only incentive and the only goal and virtue in your society, which is true of capitalism, then how the hell do you not prevent what's happening now from happening again?
No, I mean, you're right. I'm not saying, like, when I say, like, I'm libertarian, I'm not like an ANCAP. So I'm not saying you can't have any oversight. I'm just saying I don't agree with welfare.
Okay, well, that's very
welfare
different.
State.
Okay, well,
And
is that why you're against the Nazis?
see, I didn't say that entirely. Like, I'm not entirely against. Like, I don't care if you're into National Socialism. All I'm saying is, like,
well, you brought it up.
No. What I was saying is, no, I wasn't the one who brought it up. It was the people complaining about, like, capitalism. This is like this just evil thing.
It is evil.
Which here's what I'll say. When you talk about degeneracy, the reason you don't like degeneracy, just the outcomes to that, you know what I mean, that are caused by, like, the breakdown of the family, right? That's basically why you don't like degeneracy.
Well, it's not just that. I think that what is called degeneracy, which is sexual liberation, is not just the breakdown of the family. It's a way of controlling people and atomizing people as these isolated individuals that are just, the people we see today, That's my critique of it. Anyway,
liberalists. They become liberalists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Liberalists or anarchists, Antifa, leftists. One or the other.
I don't disagree. That's bad. What I'm saying is, though, I don't think the cause is necessarily rooted in, this just because it's like capitalist free market society. I think what it is if you really look back to when a lot of this started with the breakdown of the family, has a lot to do with the welfare state, in my opinion. Well, the beginning of the welfare state. I mean, even among the black, especially like in the black communities, that was
blacks have a family problem, partially because they don't have an instinct for family. Like, if you look at gender relations in Africa, it's very different from how African Americans in the 30s had gender relations. So, but that's besides the point. I want to go to my original point, which is about capitalism. You say you don't agree that capitalism is evil or a bad thing, but I mean, I won't use the word evil because that's a dualistic word and it's not appropriate for an ideological conversation. But I will say this: name me one capitalist country that did not collapse or descend into a plutocracy. Name me one.
Switzerland?
Switzerland is very dubious. First of all, it's a small country. Second of all, they have a very strong welfare state there. They have mandatory military conscription. I wouldn't say that's exactly a laissez-faire example.
Well, I mean, that really doesn't have an effect on the economy, though. I mean, I wouldn't say that's a free market.
Whoa. You mean taking 2 years out of the life of every person in that country, at their most economically productive time, that's not going to affect the economy?
All right, fair enough.
I'm saying Switzerland has one of the smallest differences between CEO pay and worker pay in the world. So, like, that's a very Switzerland is
Switzerland is a socialist country by any other name.
If you want to talk about, like, from the conservative point of view, most conservatives would consider Switzerland a socialist country. So, like, that's
the closest, like, people think that Europe or America, because we're out there advocating capitalism, tend to be the real examples of it because we have this strong economy. If you're really looking for areas with low government interference in the market, you really have to go to places that are not economically successful. The freest market in the world is in Somalia because they don't have a functioning government. The black market is the freest of markets. When you go to places that have weak central governments, you will have strong free economies. But at the same time, in many ways, it's never really all that productive, right? Because a lot of it becomes it's not production that helps out the people. My issue fundamentally is I don't like socialism. Like, I've never liked John Rawls. I never liked the analysis that we need to have a society that needs to be inherently fair in terms of outcomes instead of fair in terms of opportunity. But at the same time, like, I do understand that the role of a government is to protect and support the people. Like, I don't want to see the
market. And not just that. I mean, if you want to look at, like, just anecdotal stuff, like, socialist Nazi workers were vacationing on the Italian Riviera while American workers and unemployed were lining up in soup lines. I mean, do you see why someone would be more sympathetic to socialism in that sense?
No, I mean, look at, like, in America right now, and I hate to make this argument because it seems like a basic bitch leftist thing, but we do have all of this money. And if you take even just, let's say, specifically homeless veterans, you have enough money that is in all sorts of places that really should be reappropriated. Like, take the SPLC's grant and use it to fund homeless veterans. That's socialism I can support. There is a lot that can't be done.
It's not just that. It's the fundamental values of a country. See, the socialism I'm talking about is more like a solidarism or a Emil Durkheim combined with nationalism, where everyone gets a stake in the nation. Like, you can't complain that people don't give a fuck about their communities or their country or anything going on and identify as rootless individuals when they don't even have a stake in their country. How many of us guys under 40 can actually afford to buy a house or even a plot of land? We can't. And that's clearly a fundamental failure in our economic system, because we need that to have a family. We need that to get married. We need to believe that we're going to have our job tomorrow if we're going to have kids. Because if we don't have a job tomorrow, how are we going to feed them? And this is the real problem. This is why capitalism is garbage. And it's under capitalism, and not even communism, not even the Soviet communists, under capitalism that this sexual degeneracy flourishes, that this anti-white bullshit flourishes, that people are weaker, that our Western civilization is about to collapse and decline and disappear. It's under capitalism. And so people that defend capitalism really are going to have to fucking answer for that. Because you can't just say, I'm a capitalist because I like capitalism. Because that's not a good argument.
Well, yeah, tautology is never a good way to go out and advocate for something. I'm not a fan of conscription, but I don't know, maybe Starship Troopers had the closest to it. An idea of a franchise being restricted on the basis of either having kids or having military service or owning property, something like that. A very limited franchise, so people actually have to have a stake in it. And if you are unwilling or unable to contribute to society, I am okay, especially if it's a less ethnically heterogeneous state, to supporting the people who aren't able to do it. Things happen. I get that. And I'm not heartless. And certainly a rich society can afford, a little bit to take care of people who for whatever reason are suffering. I think that it's important that the state cares.
I thought Psych over here would have more of a, because he was very vocal in the chat, but he doesn't really make any arguments. So